Klaus lay hidden amidst the dense thicket, overlooking the windswept shores of Normandy. June 6, 1944, D-Day, as the Allied forces stormed the beach. His heart pounded, hands trembling. He was a German soldier, duty-bound to defend his homeland, but as the first landing craft hit the shore, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. The deafening cacophony of artillery fire and the distant cries of comrades masked the sound of his shallow breaths. The sky was painted with a fiery orange hue as the sun began its ascent. German defenses rattled with gunfire, bullets whizzed by, and the eerie pinging of shells echoed around him. Klaus's fingers clutched the stock of his rifle. As he peered through the dense undergrowth, he saw the vast armada of Allied ships, and the beaches came alive with soldiers storming ashore. It was a sight that would haunt him forever. In those moments, Klaus realized the enormity of the situation. On the beach below, young men charged headlong into a maelstrom of bullets and fire. Fear and determination etched on their faces. They were not the faceless enemy he had envisioned. They were sons, brothers, friends. Klaus muttered a silent prayer, but guilt gnawed at him. He had a family too, a sister he promised to protect. How had it come to this? The morning sun cast long shadows as the battle raged on. The Allies pressed forward relentlessly. Smoke billowed from burning bunkers, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder. Klaus's unit, outgunned and outnumbered, began to retreat. It was a bitter pill to swallow. As Klaus and his comrades scrambled back from the shoreline, they left behind fallen friends and wounded pride. The once impregnable Atlantic wall was falling apart under the relentless onslaught. "Retreat! Fall back!" shouted his commanding officer, his voice laced with desperation. As dusk descended over Normandy, Klaus found himself in a damaged bunker. His comrades were somber, faces etched with defeat. They had fought valiantly but had been overwhelmed by the sheer force of the Allied assault. He couldn't help but think of his homeland, his family, and his duty. He had joined the army to serve his country, but as he gazed at the faces of his fellow soldiers, he wondered if this was the price they had to pay. In the lull of battle, Klaus found a moment to reflect. He remembered the peaceful countryside of his youth, the laughter of his sister, and the dreams he once had. War had stolen all that from him. "War changes everything," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible amidst the chaos. As night fell, Klaus and his comrades regrouped. They knew the battle was far from over. The night was long and tense, punctuated by sporadic gunfire and the distant rumble of artillery. Klaus couldn't sleep. The faces of those young Allied soldiers haunted his thoughts. Morning broke, revealing a different scene on the Normandy beach. Allied forces now occupied the shore. The once pristine sands were marred by the wreckage of war. Klaus knew that they couldn't hold out any longer. Their resistance was futile. The war was slipping away from them. As the sun rose higher, Klaus and his comrades emerged from their bunker. They were exhausted, defeated, but to their surprise, they were met not with hostility, but with compassion. Allied soldiers approached, their faces weary but understanding. "We surrender," Klaus's commanding officer said, his voice heavy with resignation. Klaus and his comrades were taken as prisoners of war. In captivity, they were treated with a humanity they had not expected. It was a stark contrast to the propaganda they had been fed about the Allies. As the war drew to a close, Klaus had time to reflect on the events of D-Day. He couldn't help but wonder if there had been another way, a path to peace that didn't involve so much death and destruction. When the war finally ended, Klaus returned to a Germany in ruins. The scars of war ran deep, not only across the land but within the hearts of its people. He knew that the world would remember D-Day as a pivotal moment in history, but for him, it would forever be a reminder of the cost of war. In the annals of history, the Normandy D-Day landings will always be remembered as a turning point in World War II. Through the eyes of a German soldier like Klaus, we glimpse the complexity of war, the clash of duty and humanity, the profound impact on individuals, and the eternal quest for peace amidst the chaos of battle. In remembering D-Day, we honor the sacrifices made by soldiers on all sides and reaffirm our commitment to a world where peace prevails over war.